Yeah, I don't know why you couldn't hear us, Fred. Feel free
Why
to.
can't we go back to talking about Hoppy's children?
Feel free to try again. Hoppy's children.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't have any children.
Well, yeah, he does.
Jon Hopwood is my daddy. Jon Hopwood is my daddy. Jon Hopwood is my daddy. John. Daddy. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, maybe he does.
Somebody was dying.
I know. Who was that laughing?
Oh, no, they were dying.
Yes. Did you know that other artists did Family Man other than just Hall & Oates? And it's not actually their song?
Yes, I'm well aware that song has been covered by many people. Because I think I've heard every version from you.
Really?
Yeah. There was a good 6 months there where you were playing that all the time. Every day.
Maybe this is Fred calling again. Let's see. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's your old pal Fred, hopefully.
Oh,
Hey!
Fred, yes. We can hear you, and obviously...
it's real hard to hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why. Are you in a vehicle? Are you currently traveling?
Yeah, I'm in a vehicle, but I'm holding my cell phone.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Fred. What's on your mind,
It's
sir?
okay. Well, what I wanted to say was it was interesting how everybody asked Elizabeth Warren, speaking of last night, because that's what I started the call about way back then. Elizabeth Warren, when they're all concerned about, because she won't say that she'll tax the middle class, because Bernie said it would be a tax. Well, the interesting part about it is it's how you pay for something. The insurance company,
right?
Or you pay it in a tax. I mean, and if you pay it in a tax, it will be less than if we pay it to the insurance company.
Right.
And we already pay for Medicare out of our paychecks as it is. So if you don't have to make an insurance payment, and your boss doesn't have to make an insurance payment, and you can negotiate that cash back into your, because it's a benefit.
Right.
People give you insurance as a benefit to entice you to work for them. Now they can give you more cash because they don't have to pay for the benefit.
Right. Yeah,
that's the way it works,
But why couldn't she communicate that during the debate? I wonder.
Well, she tried to say that. I mean, that was what she was saying.
Yeah.
She was saying, "I'm not going to sign something that's going to cost more than it does now," and it's how you pay. Basically, the same thing even Bernie said. Yes, it's going to raise the taxes because that's the part that we're going to pay. But we're not going to be paying money to the insurance company. So you take your insurance payment and you send it to the government instead. That's all.
Yeah.
And it'll be less because everybody's in.
Yeah, for whatever reason, Bernie seemed to be much more able to just kind of boil it down into a couple of sentences than she was able to, it seems like.
He's been doing it for a long time.
That's true. That's a good point, yes.
Well, that's because Bernie
he's got it down.
is more honest.
He's got the 5-minute death presentation down. He's cut out all the middle chaff and said, this is what we need to do. We need to make sure we have child care for people,
Right.
Jon Hopwood is here.
Kind of stuff.
I don't know if you heard John.
Hey, John, how are you?
Hi. These are policies that Bernie's been for since I first heard about him in 1974 when I was 14 years old, and he's running for governor in Vermont. My father used to live up in Burlington, Vermont. So these are his policies, and,
Right. Oh, they all are. They're all using his policies. You're right.
He is a social democrat, although he's never really called himself that. He calls himself a socialist, like a Norman Thomas socialist. And he is who he is.
That's certainly that word scares people.
Yes.
Oh, it always has, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, John.
Well, yeah, Bernie, this is his policy. He's this isn't something he has to make up or apologize for. You're never going to see Bernie back down, about something that he's been. This is basically him for 40 or more years.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Did you have any other thoughts on the debate, Fred?
Well, with Beto, it's the problem with that I find with Beto, and I do like the man, and I don't know if I'd want him for president, but I do like the man, and I wish he would run for senator and get some experience, and then go do this again, and then he'd have a little, he'd have the spirit and the knowledge.
Right.
But
That's a good point.
For me, the thing about the guns thing, as scary as it sounds, and it really does sound scary, because I know people. I mean, I grew up in a house with 90 guns. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing they're going to get that's going to work. I mean, when you think about it, if we don't get rid of the guns, those, people are just going to keep killing each other. 40,000 people die of guns each year, and that doesn't happen other places. We got to figure out something. And if it means, okay, everybody, look, are we okay with 40,000 deaths a year or not?
I guess we are.
And if it's your kid that's dead, it means more to you than if it's somebody else's kid. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
But if it can happen in your school, that's the problem. I mean, kids get shot in school. That's scary. I could understand, they were at a party in a bar, but no, they're at school.
It did happen to my neighbors. I lived in Danbury, Connecticut, and Sandy Hook was the next town over. But I used to be a member of the NRA, but I quit. I would just, limit it to military class weapons, and you don't need a sniper rifle. And
I think realistically,
and
the most.
Okay, that's what he said.
But one of the problems we have is we do have a Second Amendment, and there was a great article.
Why is the Second Amendment a problem?
I didn't say there was a problem.
Well, yes, you did. That's exactly what you just said.
Well, the problem of that would be the Second Amendment. There's a great article from 1992. Was by a liberal. It was in the Law Review Journal that's been a right, and it's on most of the state constitutions of the time. Mm-hmm. You just can't deny that is a right. Yeah. But of course, no right's absolute. There's the right, the First Amendment. You can't defame, libel, defamation. Child pornography is so abhorrent. It has a lesser standard when it comes to indicting people for that and everything. And you can't argue that's free speech. It's covered.
Right. These rights are not absolute, and you can restrict and regulate them.
I believe, you have a right to a gun, but it's reasonable. It has to be reasonable. So I've lived in I believe in the right to have and bear an arm, but I don't need a sniper rifle. I don't need an AK-47.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think the most you can realistically hope for, honestly, is a return of the assault weapons ban. But other than that, you're never going to...
With a little bit of teeth in it, and universal background check.
Yes, right. And no gun show.
Universal background check.
But,
there's no gun show loophole. That is
sitting on the desk.
There's 250
That's not true. I've seen no people.
I've been to umpteen gun shows, and they all get background checks. Nobody gets handed a gun in a New Hampshire gun show without getting a background check.
In Texas, they do.
I'm not in Texas. I'm here in New Hampshire. There's no gun show loophole in the state of New Hampshire. So don't throw that out there.
No, I know people that bought guns in Texas at gun shows.
Can you sell a gun in New Hampshire to your neighbor?
That has nothing to do with a gun show. There's a difference between a private sale and a gun show. Yes, I can sell.
Well, no, but
by law, if a person is known to me as a resident of the state of New Hampshire, and I know that they can legally possess a firearm, I can sell that firearm to them, or they can sell a firearm to me if I meet the standard as well.
And somebody
that's true in the state of New Hampshire. However, if you're going to use that as your yardstick, then you want to explain to me why every other state that isn't allowed in has more gun crime than the state of New Hampshire?
Listen, I've lived in these states, and there's one thing that...
I've never lived anywhere but New Hampshire, John.
Well, I'm not saying. I've lived in plenty of states, and one of the things when I belonged to the NRA, I used to write letters and everything, it's in, when there is a level of guns, like in, say, Dallas or Houston, there's higher crime. And guns from New Hampshire are all over the eastern seaboard. That's been true. What are you saying? That's true. Since 1970.
You want to make changes to our society that are actually going to enact change instead of a bunch of let's make everybody have feel-good legislation. Then why don't you get parents to be parents again and stop sending their kids off to the warehouse of school for parents to not pay any attention, for teachers to not be allowed to discipline and have to basically babysit your brat who doesn't have any manners, who doesn't have any value of life because they haven't been raised with it. We stopped raising our kids with basic moral values. And that is the biggest problem we have in society. And until we start addressing the real issue, it's not going to change the violence. You can take away
That's not true, because I've seen violence in my lifetime.
Take away the AK. What is the next thing that somebody's going to use? Somebody bent on doing a crime is going to do it, no matter what they have to do to make it happen.
But that's
why
true.
they're criminals.
That's not true. You can't.
Oh, please. That's not
I've
true.
been around guns probably longer than you've been alive, and I've been in the military.
Just because you're old doesn't mean you're smart.
I know what a military-style weapon, an assault weapon, can do. I know the entire philosophy of it.
So you're aware that some of these assault weapon laws were written so stupidly they actually outlawed some 22s? Because of their appearance? Because of their appearance?
A 22 can pierce our
So you want
armor.
you're in favor of banning a 22, which is the smallest caliber bullet you can get.
That's not even what I'm saying.
Well, you just said that.
No, I didn't say
I gave you a perfect example of where the assault weapons ban failed, and that's what you give me.
How did it
New
fail?
Jersey literally had it on the books that you could
Why are you
could
so
not
passionate
own a
about
22
guns?
Because I am very passionate about the ability to defend yourself. I have been in the situation with my infant son, and the only thing between the criminal, my son, and me was the gun that I had in my lap. I don't need
in your pocketbook.
I don't carry an AK in my pocketbook. No, and I didn't. I don't necessarily.
Then, so all I'm saying is, what would you need to protect yourself in any urban setting?
Whatever I damn well feel is necessary.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
If you will end up killing somebody down the street
in anger.
Whatever I pick up as a weapon to defend myself.
In the street without having some kind of a
nobody said anger.
Have you ever fired a weapon in anger?
Absolutely not. I can legitimately sit here, stare at you, and tell you absolutely.
So you don't know how.
Not.
So you don't know what you're going to do in that situation.
I do know that in that situation, in that moment, my adrenaline and my emotion wasn't anger. It was fear. I was in fear for my life and the life of my son, and I had no escape out of that apartment.
I believe people have a right to firearms.
And you know what? That was in Massachusetts, and the police officer who was on the phone with me knew full well I had the firearm and encouraged me to make sure that I had it correctly, because they could hear it in the background. As fast as they were trying to get an officer to me in the middle of downtown Plymouth, Massachusetts.
And did that stop? What was the firearm?
It was actually a 22.
And that stopped the situation.
That was what it was between me.
So you don't need an AK-47.
I never said that I did. What I said to you, John, if you were listening, was that the assault weapons bans were not necessarily written correctly. If you want to make a specific AK illegal, then talk about that. I'm telling you that the laws were written.
All 22s weren't eliminated, were they? The type of weapon
yes,
you had wasn't
exactly right. The NRA made sure they got to know
let Fred say something here.
Say that again,
You're
Fred.
saying that all 22s are banned, but your 22 wouldn't have been banned.
Yes, because the NRA helped write those laws. That's why.
I'm no fan of the NRA.
And the thing is, and 1 second, one second. The thing about universal background checks is, and like you said, well, you can sell a gun to somebody you know. Well, here's the deal. You don't necessarily know somebody unless they get a background check.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth. You may think you know somebody, but you don't necessarily know somebody. And so everybody that has a gun, I'm okay with if you have a gun. I don't care. I have a gun. But you got to be able to pass a universal background check, period. And it doesn't mean
the law
you
anyway.
give your son a
law
gun.
On the law on the books. The law already exists on the books, which we can easily put into action. If you cannot legally own and possess a firearm under the law, under both state and federal law, you are a criminal. Period.
So what?
What do you mean, so
yeah,
what?
So what?
What does that mean?
Why can you buy one?
If I can't legally possess a firearm, if I cannot legally possess a firearm, I can't legally pass the background check.
That doesn't make sense.
Oh, for God's sakes. It does to me. I don't know what your problem is.
I can't sell you one.
Whiteboard.
I can sell you a gun if you can't pass the background check. I can
negative goes
sell you
negative.
The gun,
No,
I don't have to know
by
you.
law you've
all I have to know is that you said you wanted to buy a gun.
That's not true.
I don't have to have paperwork. I don't have to have anything.
You're talking about
right?
Show me where my law here in the state of New Hampshire that is perfectly fine with that has caused an increase in gun crime by comparison to where you're pointing it out. Because everywhere that you can point to that has laws restricting that, actually has a higher gun crime rate
that's not
than the
true.
state of New
The reason why
Hampshire.
that's not true.
Look at
Here's the reason why that's
instead
not
of
true.
using hyperbole,
The state with the highest
instead of
New
blowing
Hampshire.
everything
Death
up,
rate.
look at actual reality.
The state
What's
with the
Crime has
happening.
gone
highest
up in
death
New
rate
Hampshire.
are not.
I have a right to defend myself.
Illinois.
That's not the. But
It's
they're
not
not talking
Chicago.
about that.
That may be a town with a lot.
Chicago has
you
some
know
of the
where
strictest
one of
gun laws in
highest
the
ones
country.
is?
How's that working
Is in
out for
Missouri.
them there, buddy?
It always did.
Really? It's really always working out
You know
for them?
why they have laws? Because they are hyper violent. Just like New York City.
Chicagoans are hyper violent?
Have you ever lived there? Have you ever?
Really?
But see, you're making these false syllogisms.
No, I'm not.
They have the laws because they have a great deal of crime.
It is doing a
and you
lot
want to know
good for them.
something? In New Hampshire,
New Jersey,
violent crime
New Jersey,
has gone up.
some of the strictest gun laws in the country. How's their gun crime rate?
Well,
And they're the ones that actually used an assault weapons ban to make it 22 illegal, but a 50 cal was legal. So there's where your smartness goes in this legislation.
What you're saying is not logically true.
That is true. Go look it up.
You're taking
Go look it up. That is
not
an actual
22.
fact.
It
That
doesn't
is a
ban all.
fact.
You're saying it banned all 22.
New Jersey
Yeah,
passed
all
an assault
22s were
weapons ban.
banned.
In that ban, due to the descriptors, they ended up banning
So you
22.
can't buy in New Jersey a Ruger
They've changed
22
their
pistol. That's
they
not
changed
true.
their law, but look it up.
What's
That
the
is
caliber of an
actual fact.
M16?
Listen to me, buddy.
223.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here playing
223.
guessing games with you. I'm telling you an actual fact of law.
But
If you
it's
don't
not.
believe me, get out your little smarty phone and Google
You're
it.
saying that they banned 22s. All 22s?
They did.
All 22s were banned.
Listen to me, buddy.
No, weren't you?
Semi-automatics.
New Jersey
You can't have
screwed up
New Jersey
when they
and
passed the
semi-automatic
law.
rifles.
And that
using
can't be
fear.
righted, huh?
Yes, it can be righted. However, this is the stupidity that happens when you use fear to institute law rather than logic and science.
Tell me about how the gun violence has gone up in Manchester and the state of New Hampshire in this decade.
Yeah,
Which
what
it
else
has.
has gone up?
Oh, which has?
Really? What do you put up? What has caused that, John? What changed? Did our
No,
gun
why
laws
don't you
change?
say?
No, our gun laws didn't change. Did our criminal codes change? No, that didn't happen.
I don't know what
changed
happened.
in the state of New Hampshire, John? To bring more violence into the state of New
about
Hampshire,
your
John?
law. You just talked about
drugs,
your law.
More drunks.
You just talked about
There's
your law.
your problem.
What law got passed in this? There
The
must
wrong.
be a,
Nothing
laws
that
got
we.
passed?
What do we have problem here? We have
Jenny?
Manchester being smart and actually stepping up and having safe station, and we have other people trying to shut it down when we're
That
trying to
has-
help the people that are suffering, that are actually the ones that are robbing places because they're desperate for their next fix.
Fred,
The city of
You
Manchester is
said that
actually
there
trying to
was
help.
you said you had your law. What was your law here in New
Jenny?
Hampshire?
hang on.
Wait.
Let Fred
How,
get
how
him.
do you explain countries with less guns have less in civilized countries have less gun deaths?
I'm glad you asked me that.
I mean, how
I'm
does
very
that
glad you
work?
asked
I mean,
me that.
in most countries, why
From my
do we
recent-
have so many gun deaths?
From my recent travels
That's the question.
I'm absolutely going to answer the question. From my recent travels in Europe, I will tell you that the biggest things that I have noticed is extraordinarily amount of parental involvement in children. I see children who actually mind their manners and don't behave like they do around here. Nobody was running out with their underwear half hanging out. People actually gave a care about how they carry themselves and how they behave. I don't see the behaviorisms that I see here. I don't see the 13-year-old screaming at the elderly lady and calling her names because they think it's funny. I don't see the zombie walking down the street who's strung out on drugs.
Well, you didn't live in the 1960s.
I didn't see any of that. I was all over the place in Europe. I went to small little villages and big cities, and I didn't see that. I didn't see trash in the streets because people actually gave a care and put the trash where it belongs. I didn't see dirty diapers and old furniture laying around because people actually get rid of their stuff. People
You think
care
kids are better
about
educated?
themselves. They're better.
You think the kids are better educated?
They're absolutely better educated. Every single child I met over there knew how to speak Dutch, knew how to speak English, and a lot of them also knew how to speak Frisian. 3 different languages.
And they probably have good school systems. You know, local,
They all ride their
local
bicycles
and
to
they're all
school. There's no
standardized,
buses.
right?
They don't
In
bus
most
'em.
cases, they're standardized.
The kids are they have multiple different school settings. One of the kids I'm aware of is in military school right now. I know of another student that was in a specialty school. They have different schools. They do a lot more recognition of special needs, I think, in some respects than we do. But overall, the biggest difference is people care about themselves
they spend a lot
and
more
others.
money on
But that's
education and focus on that, which is probably a good thing, right?
Focusing on what? Education?
Education.
Of course. My point
they
is
also have one of the third best healthcare systems in the world where we don't even rank.
Universal education. We have child care, prenatal child care.
They have better medical care.
To do that in this country.
They have better infrastructure. They take better care of their roads. Everybody rides a bicycle pretty much. I mean, these even 5-year-olds riding a bicycle to school.
How many people live in
socialism thing's working.
Look it up. I don't know, actually. But I know there's a lot.
Very small countries like Denmark, they're not comparable to the United States, which has 330 million people.
Oh, so that somehow is the excuse for us to be rude to one another, to trash our streets, to not give a care about our world. Americans are pigs. I'm embarrassed as an American to come home and realize how piggy we are. Throwing trash out your window, throw your cigarette butt out the car window, dirty diaper in the street. You don't see that there because they actually take pride and they raise their kids to be that way.
Do you think if you live in a section of like Los Angeles, San Francisco, that's upper middle class or rich, that people are pigs? I mean,
you know what? If there's trash all over the street and you're throwing it all out there and you don't give a care about your environment, you're a pig.
Upper middle class suburbs like Chicago. My father lived there. It's not living in Manchester.
I think if you don't care about the world around you, and that's the example you give the youth,
you're talking about
getting
all
back
America.
what you give.
All America
the youth of today behaves like crap. Because that's what they see the adults doing.
We
got the president of the United States calling people a-holes. We've got...
We're getting back to Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Pick your poison. This is what our youth is looking at in America, and boy, we better wake up and pay attention. And the left and the right don't have any corner on the market on this. And I don't care who wants to tell me I'm wrong, be my guest. But when a child understands morality and gives a care, they treat each other better. They don't look to kill each other because they actually value each other's lives.
What about England, where England is more like the United States and
I haven't gone to England, so I'm not going to make a judgment call there yet.
Yeah, but you have people, there's a lot of class conflict.
I personally am not, and have
but
people
they don't,
there.
And they did not have a problem with guns till after, around the year 2000, there was two events happened. There was an influx of guns from the Yugoslavian wars and the crack trade.
You can keep trying to band-aid the world, but this world is not going to get better until we actually start going to the root of our problems and not piecemealing out what our little specialty is.
Now, London has a higher murder rate than New York City, which seems incredible.
Really? Is that true?
Yeah, because I went there.
It's a little silly in Texas that might actually top that one.
I went there. I've been there like all my adult life.
Maybe because a lot of people aren't getting murdered in New York.
Not as much as they used to be.
They're getting killed by the cops in Texas. They actually had more crime in that one little town than they have in some nations.
Yeah, well, Texas is pretty wide open.
Oh, why do you have an excuse for everything?
What do you mean what do you say an excuse? Have you lived in Texas? Texas is wide open.
I wouldn't want to. They like to kill people a lot.
Live free or die. Yeah, and that's the thing. You're living
live free or die. It's wide open. People aren't on top of each other, but more people died in one United States city than in a nation.
We're going to...
that's
Fred,
true.
By law-abiding gun owners.
I'll talk to you later, Bob.
There were cops.
All right, Fred. Thank you so much for the call. Take care. All right. Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple leaves us. Somebody else is... we'll get somebody else in here. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hi, Matt. This is Mary. I have to agree. Jenny, you're right. 100%.
Thank you, sweetheart.
About what?
People throwing their garbage around, because a week ago I saw somebody throw their garbage because somebody gave them something to eat, and they took their garbage and threw it right on the ground.
Yeah.
And I had to say something, and I says to the guy, do you mind picking it up? It looks a mess. I mean, there's no need of putting it in your backpack, put it anywhere but on the ground. He came back at me. He said, I don't have respect for you or anybody else. He was one of them that was panhandling. And Jenny, I agree with you 100%.
But you're talking, what about Palo Alto I lived in? They didn't have problems like Manchester.
Can we talk about the here and now?
How is Palo Alto not the here now? You talk about the United States
She
being full of
just
pigs.
called to say what she feels about right
Manchester,
here.
New Hampshire isn't the world.
A person who lives here just called to give you an opinion of here, and you're on the other side of the freaking country.
But you said the U.S.
Hang on. Let's let Mary go. All right, Mary, thank you for the call,
my friend. All right, catch you later.
Bye-bye.
Manchester, New Hampshire isn't the world, for God's sake. Well, it was like this back when I was a kid in the 70s.
Wait a minute. Didn't you just a few minutes ago claim that all the crime was up and there's a reason for that and that's why we need more gun laws?
I'm asking you.
You just contradicted yourself there, buddy. Pick a side.
No, you're just bulldozer.
No, I'm not. You just completely contradicted the beginning of your own conversation. You completely contradicted yourself.
But you said that you're a law.
Welcome back to your own show.
I thought you were
did he contradict himself or not?
I can't get you to agree on any set. See, the problem is you move the ball all the time. It's like 22.
Whatever excuse suits your need there, buddy.
Why do you keep saying that? There's something called logic. Now,
I know very much what logic is.
You can't say that a 20.
I don't need
they
you
ban
to
a 22
educate
because
me,
it
Jon
was,
Hopwood.
No, but you keep saying the word excuse. You can't
because you come up with excuses for every reason why you can't be right.
No, you can't stand being contradicted.
You can't stand being wrong.
Because what you're saying about the 22, you said they banned all 22s. They didn't. Just because you can bulldoze somebody doesn't make you right.
I'm not bulldozing
you. Are.
It's an absolute
fact. Tell me
what
the 22. You have absolute facts.
You got the phone right in front of you. Look it up.
What phone?
New Jersey had I don't know if it still is the case, present day, when they passed their assault weapons ban, the way that they word the stuff out, they actually managed to make a 22 illegal versus a 50 cal.
All 22s. Every 22.
Okay, so the lawyer whose video that I watched who actually expressed this and helped to fight against laws in New Jersey must have been full of it.
Okay, so it's somebody that's fighting against the laws of New Jersey. He would never have a bias.
Dude.
He would never have a bias. No, he would never have a bias.
When you're giving a law class on what the gun laws are for your state, you kind of have to stick to the facts.
And what's the fact there? So there's no
because
bias
in that state, it's actually a required class in order to get your license, in order to actually have a gun.
By making funny voices isn't logic. I'm just saying they didn't ban all 22.
I wasn't making funny voices. I was breathing.
Yeah. You're talking about a video of somebody who is
Look up
biased.
the law, buddy. I read it years ago. I did my homework then. Look it up. You want to say I'm wrong? Prove it. I have nothing to prove.
So all 20, you won't answer, all 22s were banned.
At that period of time,
the
long rifle 22 was accidentally screwed up and banned because of the way that they...
That's what you had as a weapon, the long rifle?
You have to remember that laws, when they are written descriptively, can often describe things they weren't intended to be.
And I worked at the National Whistleblower Center, and
I wrote laws, and I passed them as a legislator. So what's your point?
Tell us about your law, because you've mentioned the law.
Oh, for God's sakes.
What's the law? You said your law. What
in the context of the conversation we were having at that time, I was referring to New Hampshire state law versus other state laws, John.
You weren't saying something that when you were a legislator.
No, sir. I
know you passed a law about knives.
And guns.
What was the...
SB 88, which is the Stand Your Ground Bill.
I keep asking you about that.
That is the Stand Your Ground Bill.
Tell us what that is.
That was the bill that would prevent there being another of the bird situations where we had a man who was facing...
Who's bird? I'm just
There was a gentleman here in the state of New Hampshire who was potentially facing jail time for showing a firearm on his own property after somebody had gone through all of his no trespassing signs every 50 feet. He was very well signaged, fence and everything. Dude had had cardiac surgery. Person comes on his property, not supposed to be there. They call the cops and go, oh, somebody had a gun. And they're going to get the rest of this guy and put him in jail. So
why would they do that?
Because they got him for criminal threatening. They claimed it was criminal threatening.
Who came onto his land?
It was a woman who was claiming to be looking at property that she wanted to buy in order to maintain animals that needed to be taken care of, even though she'd been previously found guilty of animal abuse. So take that with what you will.
No, I think you do have a right to stand
ended up
ground.
in a very serious
but I'm
situation because
of
New Hampshire law. The law changed that a person has the right to be able to defend themselves, and that merely your alarm is not, and it does not make somebody a criminal. Being alarmed at the sight of a firearm does not make one a criminal. Somebody brandishing it at you, that's a different story, depending on the situation.
But
so we got to that.
Define brandishing, though, because I've heard different people with
that would be like cocking
pointing it at you.
Oh, pointing
waving it around at you.
A battery.
So just pulling it out, in and
being
of itself
armed.
Well, I mean,
see, that's what I mean. I hear
there are AGs out there that have prosecuted people for the mere showing of a firearm, though it was not pointed at the individual. The claim is that they were waving it around in a menacing way,
That's why
or that when they pulled it out, it was a threatening action to pull it out, even though it wasn't pointed at the person. So that's actually been a sticking point, and I'm not sure where the laws are on that right now. It's not something I really follow. I follow healthcare a lot.
That's what I thought you guys were going to be talking about.
Well, we were until you showed up.
How you mean Fred Boenig switched into this?
No, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, you know what? It was because we were talking about the debate and Beto O'Rourke and his mandatory.
I thought he was a jerk. We already have one 14-year-old. Who needs that? My point was when you say, we're going to take away everybody's AK-47. That's really a red flag and POs people. And that type of discussion isn't needed. And you have to recognize that there is a Second Amendment and you have a right to a firearm and you have a right to stand your ground, to self-defense. Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
So now we know what your law was, which is something I agree with.
So Mike Pelopita in the Facebook live chat says, hi, everyone. Very passionate show today.
After all this, we have to agree with you.
We'll get to Stefan's comments in a moment because he had a lot to say.
Stephen Philbrook?
Yep. Bill Murphy also joins us in the Facebook live chat. Of course, we saw Bill today at the Don't Punish Pain rally up in Concord. So very nice to see Bill. He's been on the show several times. Hope to have him on again soon. He has, yes.
Where's the kid? Did he have a tremendous date and is now lost? Christian.
Oh.
Am I supposed to be his daddy or something?
Not his daddy.
Jon Hopwood is my daddy. Jon Hopwood is my daddy. Jon Hopwood is my daddy.
He's about 18. I could be.
Jesus.
Who's that witch cackling?
Oh my goodness! Oh.
I winked at you.
Excuse me a minute.
I winked at you.
I'm gonna.
Well, it is almost.
I winked at you.
It is almost.
I
Halloween.
knew it was you.
You don't mind if I play some golf in the studio, do you, there, Matt?
Yeah, actually,
as long as you're careful about the balls that you
that would
putt.
be. Yes,
it is a white cane, so I do have an excuse of.
Oh,
I think that would be very bad. So Stefan says Second Amendment is not an individual right. Militia.
It is an individual
plural.
right.
That's not.
That's
true.
bull. Nobody believes that. It is an individual
Commerce
right.
matter.
It's always been.
Commerce matter in law.
Well, a lot of liberals do believe what Stefan is saying, but I would disagree. I agree with both of you on that.
But that's because the individuals
Supreme Court
made
also
up the
disagreed
militia.
as well.
The militia is every male from 18 to 60 and all women who have been military officers to the age of like 50 or something. It was set
The
in
militia
1950.
back then was just a bunch of farmers with pitchforks and whatever else they could
No,
grab.
they had firearms. My great-great-great-great-great-grandfather.
I'm not saying they didn't. I'm just saying that
has a
they were
warrant
average people.
to get the militia together to go after the French and the Indians in King George's War in 1740.
This is interesting, too. Stefan said he's a lifelong resident of Manchester.
He is.
And Manchester is much safer than it was when he was younger. And
that's not true.
He says statistics support that.
I wonder about that, to be honest with you, because over the last 3 years or so, actually within the last year, there really has been an uptick.
Well, there is
in my neighborhood on the west side. I know there has been because unfortunately I see it in my neighborhood watch app all the time.
It started a couple of years ago. There was
car break-ins are really big.
About 2016, in 2015, but 2016 it started spiking. We were shootings. 2015, a policeman gets shot over at Rock Rimmon. Near Rock Rimmon, which you'd never have seen before. His body armor saved him. And then there was...
Well, it's not true to say that it's not been seen before, especially on today. I'm going to correct you.
No, in Manchester.
Because today I do believe is the day that we remember Officer Briggs.
Right. But I'm just saying, these things just didn't happen. When Officer Briggs was shot, or the guy, I can't remember his name, 1976, that was something. If somebody got shot and killed... You remembered it, there just wasn't many murders.
That's what I mean. And I don't know if Matt, if you agree, but
it seems
you would hear about something and it would kind of catch your attention. And now it seems to be happening a lot more frequently.
I would have to see numbers. Right. To me, that's
police
all
shootings.
To me, that's all perception because we live in an age where you can get news instantly on the internet. So that's why.
No, it's true.
That's why so many people walk around believing the world is getting worse and worse all the time.
But the world's flat.
When it's actually statistically getting more and more safe.
I'm going by the actual alerts that I have.
But
it seems like there are more.
But those aren't hard numbers. It seems like there are more, but I don't even perceive it that way. So it's a matter of perception.
And they use FBI paradigms to finally codify the statistics. That's police calls or something.
I'd like to see actual numbers.
There's more shootings.
Yeah, I mean, you have a point there.
There's more shootings of police, that's for sure, because that's something that's always reported.
But you've seen actual numbers? You've seen actual statistics that show that?
No, well, actually, that's true. According to the federal crime statistics, if you go look up the federal crime statistics, officer-involved shootings are up across the board, across the country. It's not indicative strictly to our state or even our city. It's something that is upticked across the nation.
Okay.
That's right. And it must be because, like you were saying about drugs.
It's got nothing to do with the guns because that didn't change. It's got to do with the people.
That's true.
Bottom line.
Well, there's a lot
Nothing's going to get better till we change.
There's a lot of despair out there. The difference between, in the early 70s when they closed down the last shoe shop and the factories, people were kind of desperate. But then we got the defense spending of the Reagan years came up here. But, you have a whole generation of people. They used to call it with the first Generation X McJobs, where I lost my last 3 jobs were offshored. But, one of the jobs was 13 years long. Then they would get shorter. But people, you have no stability where you go into a company and make a career other than being like a professional, like a lawyer or something, and know that you're going to stick with that company. And it creates a lot of anxiety. In fact, there used to be a paradigm in political science that a society fails when the people can no longer plan on their future. And we have a generation of people that aren't so well, we call them not so well educated and that. You could go into a shoe shop, you could go into a factory, and you could work. But now it's a series of service jobs. It's not exactly like you're, winning the lottery, I guess, is your greatest hope. And that must create a tremendous amount of anxiety. And, you just flake out with dope or you just break down somehow. I just see there's a lot of despair out there.
Stefan says, I agree, good parenting does have something to do with it. However, if a good kid wants to kill a bunch of people, they will probably choose a gun over a baseball bat. Lots more effective.
Most good kids wouldn't try and kill people, but hey.
He also says militia is in there to clarify that it is not an individual right.
That's not true.
Not true.
Let me finish reading the comment. White slave owners did not want firearms to be an individual right.
Then why is that?
No, actually, white slave owners did not want black slaves or freedmen to be able to own firearms. If you go back and you look at United States history, and when it comes to gun laws, the beginning of gun laws was literally had to do with racism. It was about keeping firearms out of the black people's hands, just like marriage licenses were created to stop people from interracial marriage.
That's overstated.
We did not have to have a license. You got married, you put it in the paper, that was it. Marriage licensing was to stop interracial marriage.
I'm sure
just as much as the gun laws were to keep them out of the minority hand.
First of all, blacks weren't even people, and Dred Scott.
That's not true. That's not true.
They're all
free
other
people.
Person. They're not citizens.
They were free people. They were free men, and they wanted the law. They changed the law to keep them from to make it harder for them to be able to arm themselves.
The
just like the laws that were passed that said if you couldn't read and write, you couldn't vote.
Let's go back to the reality of the Constitution, because they have the same laws in New England. Maine, the Constitution, when it split off in 1820 from Massachusetts, one of the first things, if you look into the state constitutions, they got one of the first rights they enumerate is the right to keep and bear arms, and there's nothing about a militia. So the point is that was all through the North, and that because blacks were chattel. They were all other persons. Taney.
At the time of the creation of the Constitution, yes, you're correct. But at the time of the start of gun laws being passed, we had segregation and racism prevalent.
That's a mean.
There's a really great book that I can show you that was written by Aaron Zellman, who was the founder, and he passed away, of the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. And it actually has copies of documentation to show you where some laws came from, and I would be more than happy to share that with you.
You already have.
Well, look in it and read it, because then you can see what I'm saying is true.
No, that's not. But you see, you're taking that and you're casting it everywhere. The Sullivan Act in 1912.
Copies of the bills and the laws are right there in the book. Read it and weep. That's the law, black and white, like it or not. That's what it was.
Right, and so you know every law in the United States.
Of course
and that
not.
covered every law in the United States.
Of course not, but this is a particular area that I did spend a great deal of time in.
Not all. It doesn't have to all.
Which explains why I have all those books in my house that I've read.
And I have plenty of books, too.
Have you read Zellman's book?
You showed me it.
I showed it to you, but have you read it? Have you actually analyzed it?
Why can't we just have a conversation with what we talk about? You know, you've got to go off on all these tangents about, now it's racism. That's not true. It's not absolutely true. It might be in the South and stuff, and it might be a factor.
Why? Because the North didn't have racists? The North didn't have racist law?
That is a trope.
Are you out of your mind? You thought racism stopped at the border?
A lot. Listen, I'll match my view of history against you or anybody about what that. I know about the history of America, and we're trying to have a conversation, but you bring this.
You are the ultimate computer who knows all.
You don't want to talk about history. You bring this thing that, it's all racism. But that's not true.
I am talking about history. I asked you if you read a book that actually has the documents in it, copies of the documents in it, the laws in it, the speeches in it, about the creation of gun laws that were based out of racism, and you're like, I saw it. Yeah.
Right. So
I know the laws. I know it better than you.
See, now you're making this ugly voice that try to put me down, but you won't talk about
because you're being ridiculous.
Stuff. No, because your contention that it's all about racism.
I'm actually pointing out factual places where you can look at the data,
and you're
giving me your brainchild because that is the law.
You know, you're impossible to argue with.
Good. Stop.
So is this the book that contends that the 1968, the gun control law came out of Nazi Germany?
Yes, it does, actually. And it has a copy of the Nazi law and the American law and how it was changed and enacted. So, yes, it is actually in the book.
And what did I tell you when I read that? That was a law that was based on the German law that preceded Hitler. So it wasn't a Nazi law per se. It was a German law. It's continental law.
It was a law that was absolutely racist and specifically banned Jews.
But those were the Nuremberg laws.
They took the word Jews out.
And the law
before they passed the 1968 Gun Act,
the law that they adapted already existed in Germany.
They took a Nazi racist law and put it into American law.
Can you understand what logic is?
I will show it to you in black and white.
You showed me it. The law existed in Germany before Hitler.
Evidence-based information doesn't get through your brain pan.
You just want to believe what you want to believe.
No, I'm looking at evidence-based material.
So the fact
there's the law.
Why don't you stop talking
Here it is in English. Read it and weep. It's that simple.
So the law that existed before Hitler, that it adapted and added the Jews into, that doesn't count.
Look at Buddy.
No, you answer that. That law existed before, didn't it?
I will get the book, and I will bring it to you to show you yet again what the Nazi law was, when it was passed, and how it was duplicated in the United States.
Right, and the law didn't come out.
Do you agree or disagree that racist German law showed up in the United States and was utilized?
No, I don't. That's ridiculous.
Really?
Yes.
Really? The Gun Control Act isn't almost verbatim from that Nazi law, huh? You know about it, but it's not real.
What makes you understand this? That the law that got passed, again, by the Reichstag under Hitler, under the Führerprinzip, which they added the Jews to, was already existing continental law.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about Jewish history. Educate me, buddy.
So that the law that existed
Educate me on my own history. Go ahead.
You're impossible. You're
ridiculous. You don't look at actual data and
facts. I did look at actual data in the book.
No, you didn't. You said, I saw the book, anything. That's it. But it's in black and white. The actual bills are side by side in the freaking book.
And you translated exactly from German.
Okay, Aaron Zellman was a liar then, eh? The Jews for Preservation of Firearm Ownership
just like I thought,
are using
that bill that you're talking about.
You gonna tell me the Holocaust was a joke now, Dex, too? That's not real?
You're absurd.
Oh, there he goes. He's gonna run away now. He's gonna have his tail between his legs.
You're a bully.
No,
you are a bully.
You are.
Now we're at the level of a child.
Really?
Yes, because I'm contending that the law, which you will never let me say, already existed, and then it was adapted. So that law that you say is racist had already existed and was in effect without putting the racial
component. Yes, because as you
opponent.
put it, the book that I read it from was illicitly translated and didn't really have the word Jews all over the law.
And what was the law that existed before Hitler?
Sure.
So you just can't accept the logic that the law that was adapted
No,
and
I'm
put
not
the law
going to
that
accept
already
your
existed.
failed logic over the actual data and materials that I've actually seen with my own eyes of history.
So that
versus your brain pan. Absolutely.
You're you're crazy. I got to say that you can't even realize that law was adapted by a continental law, the German, under the.
No wonder you're having babies in Canada.
Why do you do this? Why do you have to bully? I'm just
that's
talking
being
about
a bully.
Yeah, you are. You can't even accept the reality is that law already was on the books before it was adapted.
I'll be more than happy to bring the book into you so you can refresh your memory of history.
I don't
because
need
us Jews didn't write the truth about it. We just stuck our name in there just to make it look like it was actually that because it wasn't, right?
Number one, I said nothing like that.
Yeah, you did.
You
question the translation.
Why didn't you
what
listen?
Else is that? What else does that mean? You question the translation. What does that mean? What does that mean, John? You doubted me on the translation of the German law and that the word Jews is actually not in the bill. So go ahead, John.
Ridiculous.
Tell me how I'm wrong.
Why don't you can come to my friggin' house. I got a whole library on the Germans and about how the Führer principle comes out of the Koenig principle.
I'm glad that you've studied all of that insanity. Goody for you.
Oh yeah,
I'm talking about the
actually no history.
We're talking about one specific law, we're talking about the Gun Control Act of 1968
which the law,
from.
the basis of the law already existed before Hitler. And then it was adapted after the Nuremberg.
All these people that wrote all about that and translated it are all full of bunk, and only Jon Hopwood knows the truth.
So the original law that was written for every German was racist. Before Hitler.
I'm lying, John. Just call me a liar. Go ahead.
That was all racist, right?
All you doing? I know what I read. I know the facts that were put in front of me. I'm sorry that you don't agree with actual black and white evidence.
You can even look in the book and see where it is, where the law came from.
Yeah, and it had Jews all in it. Because that word was removed.
Jenny, the law existed under the Kaiser.
The law that was used in the 1968
Republic.
United States Act was taken from freaking Nazis.
No, it wasn't.
Go ahead. All right. Whatever.
It wasn't. Somebody can contend that, but it wasn't.
Yes, Aaron Zellman wrote lies. Yeah. Joe's for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, a national organization that spent their entire inception studying these matters and pulling these matters and studying history. They're all wrong because Hopwood's right.
And so everything in gun control is this racism because that's their bias.
A lot of gun control is born from racism and did come born out of racism. And if you don't believe that,
I know that's
I can't
a trope.
fix you.
I know that's a trope. Like we have to always hear Gary, the Honorable Gary Hopper, about the Democrats being racist because of.
I didn't say anything of the sort.
Johnson.
No, he's making a comparison. He's not saying that you said that. He's saying Gary says that.
That's nice.
The law existed before. That's based on continental law.
He has to get the last word, or he's just an unhappy camper.
You do too.
Whatever, John.
You do too. The laws existed before the Nuremberg laws.
Listen to this.
Listen to what? Listen to the reality of what happened. The whole idea is Hitler despised the judiciary, and he was disgusted by the judges.
And gay people and.
Well, no, we're talking about the judiciary now and the law. He didn't want to have any judges of the law or the law. It's quite a fascinating history. And in fact, there was a separate Nuremberg trials for the jurists.
I don't find anything about Nazis fascinating. Sorry.
No, they're not.
Fails to be fascinating to somebody whose family was practically wiped out. Thanks.
What? My family went through the Holocaust in Ireland.
And I'm sorry for that. And I honor my family members that are listed in Yad Vashem. And I always will. And I hold that near and dear to my heart, and I do take it personally. And if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry.
But you always use these emotional arguments. Like all of a sudden we're trying to talk about Hitler and the judiciary and his hostility towards it, and that the fact that there was a Nuremberg trial. Oh, I don't want to hear about that. Boy, it's fascinating, particularly since we have this jackass in the White House.
Hey, we have a call. We'll grab this quick. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
What's up, Matt? This is Tony.
Hey, Tony. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Just, I don't want to change the subject too much.
Oh, please.
But one thing I do know that every race, no matter whether black, white, or whatever, Spanish, whatever, anybody that's had their guns taken away from them was pretty much genocided. That's one thing I do know.
Agreed.
And you can look in the history of that, of any culture or anything that had their weapons taken away, the next step was genocide. Check it out.
Agreed.
All right, Tony. That's a great point. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, so that's a good point, so we can keep our weapons to defend ourselves. Doesn't matter what color you are, as long as we can defend ourselves. That's all I care about.
Agreed.
All right, Tony. Well, thank you for the call.
You got it, buddy. Take care. Bye.
All right, my friend. Bye-bye. All right.
So when they took all the weapons away from Englishmen, did they kill them?
I guess not.
Look at you. You make this face. Answer the question. English, they have the strictest gun laws. They didn't kill all the English, did they?
Well, that's a good point too.
France is
the Democratic
unique.
version of a Trump.
How can you say that? Why don't you just answer a question? You're so self-satisfied.
No, you just say you have to be right on everything.
No, but
caller calls in, points out something that
so the English
is
took
historically
away
pretty
guns.
accurate if you look through
Right,
the
because
centuries.
the English
I'm
took
gonna
away.
find the one group of people that didn't get massacred and name them. That's
What about France? What about Netherlands?
I don't know. I haven't
what about
looked at their
Sweden?
histories. I'm worried about my own.
Sweden took away the guns and no, you're interested in Germany. You bring that up.
I did not.
Because you can take away people's guns and they're not going to massacre everybody.
I am not in favor of disarming this populace, but, knock yourself out there, buddy.
See, I can say I'm for guns and everything, and then you take it to an absurdum. It's ridiculous. You're too emotionally involved in this issue.
Yes, of course. Call me an emotional woman because that is the
say you were an
standard for
emotional
every
woman.
man in the world to use.
And
you
am I
are
wrong?
such a walking contradiction. It's ridiculous.
You
claim to be one thing and then you actually treat people differently. You claim to be all inclusive, but you're pulling out, you're an emotional person.
Men are never emotional.
Men are never emotional.
Men are never emotional.
Really?
Right?
You're not emotional there, John. You're not hot under the collar over there, John. Watching your mannerisms, the way you're shoving things around.
You're very unpleasant today to talk to because you're constantly turning stuff around. Because now I say, of course men are emotional. It's just not women. But see, I say, you're an emotional. So now it's got to become a woman. It's always got to be something about oppression.
Stop trying to claim the fact that my ideas are based out of my emotion
it
versus the things that I know and
emotion.
understand. No, the knowledge and the study and the things that I learned have nothing to do with my opinion. It's all emotion based because I'm a woman.
Yeah, that's what I said. Men
that's
are
what
never
you're insinuating.
That's not what
you're
I'm
insinuating
it. No, it's not. Hey,
You're
we're already
ridiculous.
over 6:03.
Well, we're actually off the air on FM, but I let
so we can keep going at it.
But I let the Facebook Live video go, and
please.
it's still recording because I didn't want to.
You're evil.
What?
After the things that when we're off air, boy.
Oh, now we can F-bomb?
No,
because then
we're on Comcast.
Yeah.
No, the point is, I support almost everything you say, but you're talking about stuff, and I'm just talking about when you're
I'm talking
saying
about actual facts, John.
It's not.
You're calling emotion facts.
The fact is that the Nazi law is based on extant German law that already existed.
The fact is the Nazi law that forbade the ownership of guns by Jews is the duplicitous.
The German law
was
already
duplicated
existed
in the United
before
States
Hitler.
law in 1968 Gun Control Act.
It is a German law that was a common continental law.
So the books that I've read and everything was, as you
because
said,
they're not biased.
Not translated correctly.
Because
in
the people
Hopwoodese.
are biased, right?
People are biased, so they intentionally mistranslate it. You're telling me that everything that I was looking at by lawyers and other people is a bunch of blunk.
Oh, and
bunch of bull.
Lawyers start biased, right? I've been in I've been courtrooms and stuff.
Why
They're
don't
paid
you
to be biased.
get the copies of the things I'm talking
You
about
already
and prove it
saw
to me that it's wrong since my book is a lying book.
I can't.
Since Aaron Zellman and the Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership are a bunch of blocky, and they printed this stuff for no good reason but to screw you over.
I can't prove that because you won't admit that
I'm not going to admit that
the law already existed. So to say that the law that it already existed, which is a common law. No, they did.
The law that was duplicated in 1968 Gun Control Act in the United States of America was a Nazi law.
No, it's not
true. And I will show it to you in black and white again if you promise to actually read it this time. You looked at it, but you didn't read it. You didn't read it. You're looking at it. You didn't read it. Open your eyes and read the stupid thing.
You know, Jenny, you want to believe what you want to believe and there's absolutely no
I have the evidence and the facts in my
home. So that the fact that the law had already been written,
that I can look up and show it,
and then it was added to, that means nothing.
Oh, now you're saying it was added to. Who added
to it,
John?
Which I've been saying for about 40 minutes.
John? Who changed the law, John? What law was used to duplicate it in 1968 by the United States government? Nazi.
No, that's
Nazi law was used in 1968.
That's
Nazis
false, and I reject
are the ones that put the language in there for Jews, and that is the law that was duplicated in 1968.
In the 1968 Act, Jews can't own firearms.
They took that word out, as I said it before.
So the law,
and I'll say it again.
You mean they went back to the law before the Nazis that already existed on the books?
Listen, buddy, what did you just say? The Nazis changed the law. Did you or did you not say that? Yes or no?
They changed the law to add the Nuremberg to add Jews, but that doesn't mean that the law
that was duplicated in 1968 was whose law?
The Imperial German law.
The Nazi
and it wasn't
German
even that.
law.
You don't understand law and how.
I don't understand law. I wrote law, helped pass law, but I don't understand law.
So you never saw a model law.
Excuse me?
You never saw a model law.
Of course I saw a model law. I wrote model legislation, mister.
What organization did you belong to?
I started the knife freedom movement across this country.
So you know what a model law is.
That's also lookable on your Google search that you won't use.
My phone's dead.
Well, that's not my problem that you can't look it up, but look those things up. Find the facts
I know
for
what
yourself,
a model law is.
because they're there.
You just want to believe what you want to believe.
Whatever.
I mean, look, you're talking about continental law. Those laws,
no, I'm talking about the Nazi
what is continental law? What is continental law?
That was duplicated in United States law in 1968. They took out the word
Jew. That law was based on the law that already existed in Germany.
Okay, wait. So, in your mind's eye, if something was written by, let's say, France in Louisiana, and then Louisiana took that law and kept it after the Louisiana Purchase, but they changed it up a little bit and they made it, Americans, it's still a French law.
Not a French law.
Well, yes, it is under your standards.
No, that's
under my standard.
No, that's under your standard. Your standard is Nazi.
The last hand that made the law was the law of the land is the one that's responsible for it.
So the Germans didn't get rid of the Nazi law, right? They didn't refine it. Did you ever look at the law after 1945 in Germany?
Did the United States government use that law as a model to put into the 1960s? Yes, they did. Read it.
No, they didn't.
Some of the sentences were almost verbatim. Have you read them?
I read, you gave me the book, and what I saw was that the law existed before the Nazis.
Oh my God, that's all you saw? And they just adapted You didn't read anything. You just looked at pictures.
Right, I know, yeah, and I know nothing about...
I need to get you a pop-up book so you can get it?
Why are you so nasty?
Because you make it so easy.
No, you make it so easy because you won't reason to anything. You
won't reason to anything. You won't actually open your eyeballs and read it.
I was there and read the book.
You're looking at that picture.
I read the book. It was right there.
You did not read the book.
Yes, I did.
You looked at the pictures and you handed it back to me.
I don't have to read the whole friggin' book.
You didn't read the whole friggin' book. You do have to read it if you're going to actually sit there. If you're going to dissect law, you need to read it.
I don't have to read. I read the law, Jenny. I don't have to read
yes, that's right. My book has a false translation. And the word Jews wasn't really in there. It's a figment of my imagination and millions of other people's. Millions of other people's
You think that the Judiciary Committee of the United States government, the Judiciary Committee of the United States Congress in the Senate and the House is going to take a Nazi law
Yeah, I do.
Everybody knows.
The same place, the same place that time and again, United States history did not legislators and senators actually get on the floor of the United States Congress and demand that we make it illegal constitutionally for interracial marriage based on the one-drop rule. That occurred not once, not twice, not three times, but multiple times in the United States history on our floor.
That was outlawed in 1967.
So if you tell me that, if you ask me, do I believe that a racist law was heard in Congress? Absolutely, I do.
The great Democratic majority that came in with LBJs when they take an anti-Semitic law.
Time again.
Crazy.
Time again.
What happened in 1960?
Has had racist things going on up there. Our society used to believe that slavery was perfectly okay to own a human being. That was in our legislature. That was in our walls.
That's in the Constitution.
Separate but equal. Where did that occur? Where did that occur? In our legislative walls.
This has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with the 1968
The legislators that created that act used that law.
No, they didn't.
Practically verbatim. You can look it up. I'm not going to argue with you anymore because my throat's getting sore. I'm telling you, look it up, read it.
I already told you the law already existed before the Nazis. And I'm sure it existed in the Federal Republic of Germany. And I'm sure that they didn't need a German law.
Millions of people that have written about this topic
Millions.
to death.
Millions.
Are absolutely bull.
Millions of people.
Yeah.
And you can go back to contemporary.
This is a huge friggin' issue among gun owners.
You can go into the congressional record
and it is something that does get talked about quite frequently.
Why would they need that? It doesn't make any sense.
It was a simple, easy model legislation to use. That's what they used.
Right. And with some
when have you ever known our government not to take the quickest, easiest, simplest way out?
So you did just say it was a model legislation.
They used it as model legislation. They took out the Jew part.
They did not use a German
law. Yeah, they did.
Just because some book that you
put them side by side, read it, and if they're not, and if you can't see it,
I did. I looked at the thing.
No, you didn't.
The law already existed before. How come you cannot understand that?
What did you say?
The
law was altered. Did you or did you not state that the law that was on the land, that was off the books, was changed by the Nazis and introduced the word Jews?
Why don't you just be quiet for a second?
Shut up.
The fact is, like I was trying to tell you, I've got plenty of books about it, that Hitler despised the German judiciary. What
does that have to do with gun law?
It's plenty to do with it. Because they didn't
that was enacted
like
in Germany and copied in the United States. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Hitler's feelings about the judiciary. We're talking about whether or not this law was duplicated in the United States law, and it was.
A Nazi law was not duplicated.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
You can believe whatever you want, but,
Look it up. I don't have to believe whatever I want. I can believe what's black and white. I believe what I could see,
and I know exactly what I thought.
In black and white,
because I know that the Germans kept the law under the Imperial Germans and under the Weimar Republic, and they just adapted it. That was one of the great things, and it came out in the Nuremberg trials of the judges. They just, instead of the Koenig principle, they go with the Führer principle. But Hitler couldn't stand lawyers because he wanted stuff done, and then they would always be lawyers and stuff. And they couldn't adapt themselves enough for them. The law that you're talking about had already existed in Germany, and it probably existed afterwards, too. The Nuremberg laws are shameful.
Yes, because the Nazis didn't do all kinds of laws in order to disarm the populace. So nobody could have possibly used anything that they did to duplicate in their own areas because they didn't exist, right?
The 1968 Act hardly disarmed the populace of the United States. Come on. It banned, mail order weapons, like the ones used by,
The 1968 Gun Control Act did a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah. We didn't have any weapons of 68. They suddenly came, They banned importation of certain weapons, like, the PP was the PPK, so they had to create the PPS because it had to have a certain length and that for concealment. Mail order weapons and certain guns, but it wasn't that comprehensive. But it was more than existed before.
Well, I suppose we should start to wrap up.
I'll bring in the entire library about the German judiciary.
In 1933, Adolf Hitler seized power. And it was during that time that constitutional rights were suspended. Mass searches took place
if you have
to seize guns,
rights, you don't even have laws,
to silence dissidences, And I can't even find the exact
but
year.
But that was everybody.
And in 1938, Hitler signed a new gun control act. And this is the very paper that I'm talking about.
This was all, they did that to everybody.
Which was then, no, it specifically had to do with Jews.
No, they had that was the year of the
1938, Hitler signed the gun control.
Kristallnacht.
The 1938 Gun Control Act.
And what are you reading, Wikipedia?
No.
Well, go to Wikipedia.
Actually, Wikipedia is not a good resource. When I was in college, that was the one place you could not cite.
I think the two of you would agree on this.
Everybody can change it.
No, you go to that, but the thing about Wikipedia is you actually go to the sources they cite. I'm not going to go to a biased site. It just gives you a thing.
No, I'm reading a National Review history article about the history.
National Review, which is right-wing.
That's true. They are a conservative publication.
Well, they used to be considered a reactionary, but now they've moved to the middle.
Which is pretty much the same things that were in that book that we were talking about.
I'm not going to cite the National Review. That's a biased source. I hope they haven't told my card.
So it's not true that Hitler passed the Gun Control Act in 1938.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly that's what I'm saying, right?
That's what I said to you from the article.
I'm saying that the 1968 Act isn't based on any Nazi
Yes, it is.
Act,
The 1968
and any law that would be German had been a continental model law. And guess what, Jenny? They don't have guns in England because London used to be super violent in the 19th century.
Yeah,
and they didn't. I don't know of any Holocausts that happened. The English didn't kill each other; they just stuck you in a factory and worked you till you died at 58, a toothless old fart or something. Jeez,
we actually have a call. Let's grab this because people are still watching on Facebook.
The English still don't have teeth.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Hi, welcome to the Matt Connarton Unleashed bonus show. Who's this?
I love it.
The bonus is my car.
I love it. I posted all the sources that Jenny was citing.
Yes.
But I also posted all the sources that said that what they were doing in that report, which I posted the report and the cover of it,
you guys.
and the information from Fordham University about it. That she's not necessarily correct on what she's saying because they misrepresented a lot of things in that report.
You're talking Aaron Zellman's book?
Yeah.
So you said.
I'm not making a judgment. I'm just saying what like you said, Wikipedia, all these places that snoop, that kind of fact checked it, said they weren't, they were pretty much not right.
Snoops and Wikipedia.
I just thought I'm not making an opinion. I'm just telling you it's in the feed there.
Thank you. I thank you for that.
All right.
I will say for the record, though, that Wikipedia can be changed by anybody, so I don't trust it. And Snoops is run by, we all know. Snopes, whatever, Snoops.
Snoops is a site where you can spy on people. I'm kidding. That's not true.
Well, there are a couple of...
That'd be fun. Oh, my goodness. Wow. So, Jon Hopwood had to leave suddenly. And he said something about, I hope they haven't towed my car.
Uh-oh.
So I guess I
guess we can give him a ride home if they did, right?
Well, of course, yes. So on that note, I do have a song queued up to finish up. So on that note, we will wrap up. But before we go, I just want to say hi to Michael Alber in the Facebook live chat, as well as Tom Blanchard. Just a few folks who joined us late. We're not going to get to all of your comments, but I appreciate that. Oh, and Peter White, of course, from the morning show with Peter White.
Peter.
Peter joins us in the Facebook
Peter's
live chat.
I'm losing my brain here.
Of course, you can hear the morning show weekdays from 7 to 9 a.m. live here on WMNH 95.3 and a replay from 2 to 4 p.m. immediately preceding this program. And I'll get to see Peter tomorrow night at the end of this program. I'll have to get the show uploaded and get out of here quick and head over for the Granite Mike Awards put on by the New Hampshire Association of Broadcasters, as they do every year. Always a great time, or as I like to call them, the Channel 9 Rock 101 Awards. But but it'll be great to hang out with Peter and Daryl and Rob Azevedo, and really looking forward to that. And I do enjoy the meal, of course, because it is my stomach's world, and you all just live in it. So the overrun, as we say for the show, will be included in the podcast that goes up. So if you missed any part of today's show, including the part that did not go out on WMNH Live, but did go out, of course, on the Facebook feed, that will also be included at WMNHradio.org. So you'll be able to hear everything then. And Fred did post a bunch of those links, by the way, in the Facebook live chat. So thank you. And Jenny, thank you.
I need to go across the street to the Hop Knot now and get something.
Oh.
After all of that.
Gonna head back over there. Oh, yes. And thank you again, by the way, to the Hop Knot. Jenny brought me this this wonderful mug. So I'm holding that up for folks on the Facebook Live to see. So it's nice. So I can put my water in the mug.
Garlic pretzel with a beer cheese dip. It was really good.
That does sound good.
Now I'm hungry again.
Oh, my goodness.
Time to go.
Well, all right. All right. So that's it for us for now. I got a little song here to play us out. I'm going to kill the Facebook Live feed in a second, but it'll be in the podcast at WMNHradio.org. And talk to y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.
color